Jasper Whitlock was born in 1843 in Houston, Texas, during a time when war and survival shaped the character of men before they even reached adulthood. From a young age, his distinguished demeanor and his ability to earn the trust of others made him stand out. His mother used to tell him that he was destined for great things, that he had the charisma of a leader and the presence of a gentleman. When the Civil War broke out, Jasper was only 17, but he lied easily, and his well-developed physique allowed him to pass for someone older. Without hesitation, he enlisted in the Confederate Army, convinced that honor and glory awaited him on the battlefield. Soon, he became the youngest officer in his regiment. He was not the strongest, nor the most brutal, but he had an innate gift for understanding people. He knew what they needed to hear to keep going. He knew how to inspire loyalty, and so they followed him without question when he led them into battle. But war was not glory. It was blood, desperation, and death. Jasper quickly learned that war was not won with speeches or bravery, but with sacrifices. He watched men he considered brothers fall, saw how brutality destroyed his own side as much as the enemy, and yet he was good at it. Too good. His rise in the army was swift, and with each victory, his reputation grew. Jasper Whitlock was a born leader. And that was why Maria chose him. The day Jasper died was as ordinary as any other. He was riding back after evacuating a group of women and children when he saw three figures standing in the middle of the road. Three women. Beautiful, inhuman, their dresses impossibly clean for having touched the dust of war. Jasper slowed his horse. "Do you need help?" he asked, his tone polite. The tallest of them, with dark hair and intense eyes, smiled. "Oh dear, the help is you." Jasper had no time to react. Maria moved with a speed his human mind couldn't comprehend. He felt a searing pain in his neck, as if his skin had been torn apart by fire. Then he fell. The change was agony. It was not like in fairy tales, not a peaceful death followed by a glorious rebirth. It was the worst suffering he had ever felt in his life. The venom burned through his blood for 3 days, destroying his humanity, reshaping his body into something new, stronger, faster. When he awoke, the world was different. The sound of the wind was deafening, the scent of blood in the air intoxicating. Maria was there, her smile full of satisfaction. "Welcome back, my beautiful soldier." Jasper stood with terrifying ease, his new senses absorbing every detail around him. His thirst was unbearable. And before he could understand what was happening, Maria led him to his first hunt. Jasper became a monster before he even understood what he was. Maria trained him with precision, molding him into the perfect soldier. She taught him to hunt, to kill, to build armies of newborns who would fight for her in the eternal war for control of the South. For years, Jasper led those armies. It was his duty to find the strongest humans, turn them, and lead them into battle. He knew they wouldn't last long. Newborns were too volatile. They barely survived a year before Maria ordered them eliminated, before he eliminated them himself. But he didn't question, he didn't think, he only obeyed. He was a soldier. But with each death, with each scream, something inside him shattered a little more. Until one day, he couldn't take it anymore. The first time he felt true remorse was with a boy, a newly turned newborn, barely transformed, a 15-year-old who had never asked for this life. "I don't want to do this," the boy said, his voice trembling, and Jasper felt it, felt his fear, his pain, his desperation, because that was his gift. He had always had a connection to the emotions of others, but now as a vampire, he could feel them with terrifying intensity. Every death, every betrayal, every scream in the night, he felt it all in his own skin. And when he killed that boy, he hated himself more than he had ever hated anyone. That night, he decided to run. It didn't matter if Maria hunted him down. It didn't matter if there was no place for him in the world. He couldn't do it anymore. For years, he wandered. He fed because he had to, but each life he took filled him with guilt. He hid in the darkness, hoping that solitude would keep him away from suffering. But solitude was also a punishment, until he saw her, a small woman with dark hair and eyes full of light, Alice. She found him before he found her. "I've been waiting for you," she said with a smile, as if she knew exactly who he was. Jasper frowned. "You don't know me." "Oh yes, I do," she said with a certainty that disarmed him. "And I know you have to come with me." Jasper studied her carefully. "Why?" Alice shrugged. Because there's a future where you and I are happy." Jasper didn't know what to say to that, but deep inside, something told him he should follow her. And for the first time in centuries, he did. What he didn't know was that this path would lead him to the Cullens, to finding a family, and to discovering if, after everything, a killer could be redeemed. Jasper looked at Alice with suspicion, but also with something else: hope. He didn't understand. He couldn't imagine why this strange woman seemed so sure of him, as if she had known him forever. But her voice was calm, without fear, without judgment, and that was something Jasper hadn't felt in a long time. "A future?" he repeated softly. Alice nodded enthusiastically. "One better than the one you're leaving behind." Jasper exhaled slowly, though he didn't need to. He needed to believe it, so he followed her. Alice led him to the Cullens, to a family unlike anything he had ever known in his existence as a vampire. At first, Jasper couldn't trust them. How was it possible for them to live like this? They didn't kill humans. They didn't form armies. They didn't fight for territory. They weren't like him. Carlyle, with his infinite patience, never demanded anything from him. He spoke to him of control, of compassion, of another way to exist. Esme welcomed him as if he had always been part of the family, with a warmth that Jasper neither understood nor deserved. Edward watched him with distrust at first, sensing every dark thought that still lingered inside him. But over time, even Edward stopped seeing him as a threat. And then there were Emmett and Rosalie. Emmett treated him like a brother from the start, unconcerned with his past, unafraid of his strength, as if Jasper wasn't a monster. Rosalie understood him better than anyone. They both knew what vengeance was, what rage was. They had both been transformed without a choice. They didn't always talk, but when they did, they didn't need to say much. Rosalie knew what Jasper was trying to hide, because she hid it too. But the path to self-control wasn't easy. The first year with the Cullens was torture. Every time he entered a city, he felt the pull of every human heartbeat around him. Every time someone breathed near him, every time blood stirred beneath someone's skin, Jasper had to hold himself back with all his strength. There were moments when he thought he would never succeed. Moments when he felt he should leave before doing something the Cullens couldn't forgive. But Alice never let him fall. She guided him with patience, with love, with an absolute faith that he could be better. And for the first time in his immortal existence, Jasper began to want to believe it too. The years passed, and little by little, he became someone else. His thirst never disappeared, but he learned to control it. His killer instinct was still there, buried beneath the surface, but he learned to suppress it. The Cullens gave him a purpose he had never had, a family, a home. But the past never disappears completely. Jasper still woke up some nights to the echo of newborn screams in his mind. He could still feel on his skin the desperation of every life he had taken. He still hated himself for what he had been. But Alice was there, always there. Every time his darkness threatened to return, every time the weight of his history became unbearable, Alice took his hand and reminded him that he wasn't alone. Because, in the end, he had found the future she had promised him. And after centuries of war and blood, Jasper Hale finally had peace.